Welcome everyone present today and over the internet who may be joining us for what is the fourth and final hearing day of the Committee's 2024 review of the Dust Diseases Scheme. I acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians on the lands on which we're meeting today. I pay my respects to elders past and present and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of New South Wales. I also acknowledge and pay my respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. My name's Greg Donnelly and I am the Chair of the Committee. I ask everyone in the room to please turn their mobile phones to silent if they've not done so already. Parliamentary privilege applies to witnesses in relation to the evidence they give today. However, it does not apply to what witnesses say outside of the hearing, and I urge witnesses to be careful about making comments to the media or to others after completing their evidence this morning. In addition, the Legislative Council has adopted rules to provide procedural fairness for inquiry participants, and I encourage committee members and witnesses to be mindful of the procedures. So welcome, Mr Marissat, for attending today. We need to go through the formality of having you either sworn or affirmed to give your evidence. So if I could please invite you to do so just by stating your name, your position title with Acciona, and then swear either an oath or an affirmation, whichever you prefer, the words of which should be before you. So over to you.
Thank you. My name is Andrea Matthew Luke Marcinet. I'm known as Andrew Marcinet. It's much easier. I'm the Project Director for the Western Harbour Tunnel, and I'm also the Project Director for the M4-M5 Link project, also known as WestConnex 3A, which is still in defects liability period. I obviously work for Acciona, and I'm happy to provide an affirmation.
Thank you.
I solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. That's great. Now we commence by offering, if you wish to do so, to make an opening statement. So once that's completed, if that's what you decide to do, take up that opportunity. We've got members around the table from opposition, crossbench and government, and if you're agreeable, the way it proceeds is that through me, the Chair, I offer opportunities for members around the table to ask questions of you, and we just pass them round in an equitable way and take us through to probably just before 12 o'clock. So that suits you, that way?
Certainly.
Yeah. So first of all, would you like to make an opening statement?
I do. I have a statement to commence with.
Thank you.
It's a statement about Acciona.
Thank you.
Acciona is a global leader in sustainable infrastructure solutions. Here in Australia, we have evolved from a rich history of local companies, for example, Abbey Group, Balderston and Hornibrook, that have been delivering complex, sustainable and iconic projects, such as the Sydney Opera House, for example, contributing to the growth of this country and the sustainability of Australian communities for over 100 years. The key driver that underpins the company's approach is a culture built on family values. Our CEO here in Australia is the son of the founder of one of the local businesses, and 20% of Acciona's Australian business remains in that family ownership. This, combined with the global chairman of Acciona being the grandson of the founder in Spain, ensures that these family values are reflected in how we collaborate with clients and local communities to make decisions that are better, are effective and are sustainable. It has long been embedded that we ensure our people are at the heart of our strategy. Our employees, and that particularly includes our blue-collar workforce, are encouraged to think long-term when they join Acciona. We want to offer a career beyond the life of a project. Acciona is about certainty, longevity, and an opportunity for rewarding careers. We can do this because our business spans the entire value chain, from project concept, design, construction, through to operation and maintenance. We develop infrastructure solutions, including across transport, energy and water, all of which we are currently delivering both in New South Wales and across Australia. And I guess from a personal point of view, I've been involved in the construction industry since I was a teenager and have worked in mega and major projects for well over 40 years. And my personal values align with the values of Athiona very closely. My father wore a blue collar to work every day, and that recognition that our blue collar workforce are the artisans and the true people that build our projects is never lost on me personally. As far as tunnelling goes, Athiona's first major project in Australia was the Legacy Way Tunnel in Brisbane, which commenced in 2011 and opened in 2015 and was undertaken using 2 large tunnel boring machines. Athiona was in joint venture on that project with BMD and with Geller, and the principal contractor for the purposes of the WH&S Act was BMD Constructions. Since that time, Athiona has been involved in constructing 3 other major tunnel projects, all here in Sydney. WestConnex Stage 3A, also known as the M4-M5 link, of which I am still the project director and was since its inception. Tunnel excavation was completed by Roadheaders, and it was a joint venture between originally Lendlease Engineering. Athiona purchased Lendlease Engineering, and we were in joint venture with Samsung and Bouygues, a Korean company and a French company. Athiona was the principal contractor for the purpose of the OH&S Act, and the systems and processes on the project were based on Athiona systems and processes. The second tunnel was the Sydney Metro Central Tunnel package, recently completed. The tunnel excavation was principally by tunnel boring machines. The head contractor was a joint venture between Athiona Construction and Ferrovial, and Athiona was again the principal contractor for the purposes of the WH&S Act, and the systems and processes were based on Athiona's systems and processes. And of course we moved to the current project, which is the Western Harbour Tunnel. Excavation is undertaken by a combination of Roadheaders and Slurry Shield TBMs. We are undertaking this project. The project was actually delivered in 2 stages. P1, which is undertaken by another contractor. We're delivering the P2 phase. We are the head contractor, and we are, for the purposes of the OH&S Act, and the systems and processes are all Athiona processes. So each of these projects prepared a safety management plan which supported the identification of risks, association with the inhalation of dust, and described measures to address these risks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So I'll just pass over to Honourable Susan Carter.
I just, for transparency and for the information members of the committee and the witness, that I had a lovely conversation with Craig McGrory last night, who is the Chief Transformation Officer, and I just wanted to make it clear that I had met and spoken to him.
Thank you for that declaration, so thank you. I'll pass now to the Deputy Editor, Honourable Chris Rath.
Thank you, and thank you for appearing today. I was just wondering if you could maybe explain to the committee members what the hesitancy was in appearing before this parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, I can. I'm advised that Athiona senior executives understood that the committee was primarily interested in the whole of industry perspective, which is why they suggested, or Athiona suggested, that the committee speak with a representative from the Australian Contractors Association, which represents approximately 17 major contractors in this industry. However, that has been clarified, and I'm happy to be here to answer your questions as someone who is involved in tunnel construction within the business.
And thank you for outlining the projects that you've worked on in Sydney, very important projects. I was wondering if you could explain more to the committee what the standard procedures for air quality monitoring would be at those 2 completed and 1 ongoing projects.
Certainly. We do virtually daily monitoring of different aspects of the project. You would obviously, or I would expect you would understand that the project covers a number of different sites. This particular one on Western Harbour Tunnel goes from Rozelle all the way across to Camaray. WestConnex 3A was similarly from St Peters to Haberfield. So we constructed them at various sites, and every day we are doing monitoring of some description, air monitoring, static monitoring. We do mobile monitoring. We do monitoring of similar groups. We do different types of monitoring: dust, nitrous oxide, carbon monoxide, diesel particulate. We even monitor for mould. We have a full-time occupational hygienist on the project, plus many of our safety professionals are familiar and capable of undertaking monitoring. We do handheld monitoring, but more importantly, we do monitoring that's reliable and can be validated off-site using laboratories and can be relied upon.
And if there were an extremely high level of respirable crystalline silica at one of your sites, how is that reported? Is it reported to SafeWork? Is it reported in real time? What's the process if there is that elevated level beyond the sort of safe level?
I think it's important to understand, if you don't mind me answering the question this way, that the nature of the project by excavating sandstone. Sandstone is primarily silica. It has a very high proportion of silica, maybe something like 80%. So every single day, every time we engage with excavation tools, whether they be road headers, whether they be rock saws, whether they be excavators, we are discharging silica, whether it be on the surface or underground. So we do this every day. And the key for us is to control and manage the silica, to collect the silica as best we can, so that it doesn't impact our workforce and our staff and anyone else that goes underground. So we're doing this every day, and we use a number of different techniques. If you're referring to an exceedance, is that
correct, yeah.
what your reference is to? So an exceedance means to, if we don't meet the criteria over the length of a shift, and some of our shifts are 10 hours, some of our shifts are longer. So the workplace exposure standard, if we happen to exceed that, we will report it to SafeWork, but that is done when a person or a group of people have actually been exposed to that level of silica. It doesn't mean that, for example, at the head where the excavation is being undertaken, that we're not exceeding it there, because we would be exceeding it at the face. But it needs someone to be exposed to silica, and that happens rarely. When it does happen, we report to SafeWork.
And just a final one from me, because we've got lots of committee members that have questions, but if they're in that case with the exceedance, how soon after that exceedance would you pass that information on to SafeWork? Is it a matter of a day or two? Is it longer? And is there information that you are collecting on air monitoring, in particular when it comes to silica, that isn't being passed on to SafeWork, either because it's not required under the law or for some other reason?
So in terms of exceedances, we have to get the data back from the laboratory. So it's usually not possible to pass it on within a matter of days. It usually takes somewhere between 5 and 7 days to receive the data. I think our obligation is to provide it to Safe Work within 14 days. So we do that definitely. We meet those requirements. We do provide data on all of our monitoring to our workforce, and that data is available for others to review, including Safe Work and our client and other stakeholders. We don't hide from the information.
Thank you.
Ms Abigail-Boyd.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning. Thank you very much for coming along today. I understand that for the Western Harbour Tunnel Stage 2 works, you're using both road headers and tunnel boring machines. Do you require different types of PPE for those different tunnelling types?
I would say that for the tunnel boring machine, it's a closed circuit system. What that means is the face is never exposed to daylight, if you like. We still require a minimum PPE, including P2 respirators, or in some cases PAPR if, for example, we had someone, if I may say, like the gentleman next to you or the gentleman over there who has facial hair and we can't provide a seal. So the standard is the same.
Yeah.
The exposure criteria might be different at the cutting face, but we still have exposures back where spoil is collected and discharged. So it's the same standard.
We heard evidence last December from Transport for New South Wales that for road headers, in recent years, P2 masks were mandatory, but in more recent years, technology's improved and Transport for New South Wales say it's using VersaFlow masks now. Do you agree with that characterisation of of Transport for New South Wales' evidence around PPE use for road headers?
Transport for New South Wales see a number of different projects delivered by a number of different contractors. In our situation, we always require masks to be worn, whether the operator is inside the cabin or if somebody is outside the road header. I would agree that technology has improved. I've been in this industry since well into last century. Some of the differences, for example, are road headers come with sealed HEPA filtered cabins that 20 plus years ago they didn't have. So definitely the protection mechanisms for operators are superior to what they used to be. We still insist on wearing masks for operators inside the cabin because there is always a possibility, a rare event, that a seal might be broken or some kind of mechanical element may occur at a particular moment. And so the PPE is if you like, a backstop. It's not the primary protection measure, whereas probably in the past it was the primary protection measure.
So Transport for New South Wales expressly said that VersaFlow is used in the Western Harbour tunnel boring machines. Are you requiring VersaFlow or similar masks, the PAPR, to be used for your road header works in that project?
I'm going to answer the question, but I just question the context.
Yeah.
The tunnel boring machines have not been used yet. They're still to be delivered on Western Harbour Tunnel. So they will be, but they're not there at the moment. What I would say is that if people choose to use VersaFlows, and in some cases they have to, we have certain criteria where VersaFlows must be used. We have other criteria where VersaFlows are optional. We provide both. As I said, people with facial hair must use VersaFlows because the seal can't be provided. For certain activities such as blowing dust off or blowing material off the excavated
Yeah.
sandstone surface, we would insist on VersaFlows.
So
So
can
we
I-
have both options.
Can I just show you, and I've got a copy of these, if I can maybe just pass you a copy of these as well. And I have some for the for members, or to be copied perhaps. Sorry, if I could just, might need to copy those. Yeah, sorry, but I can give you this one.
Sorry, Rebecca, just so we just see what we're looking at
So
here.
what I'm looking at here is a document called Tunnelling Cammeray to Waverton, and it's an April 2024 version. You might want to just give the witness this one, this copy.
Can we just get copies for the committee? They look like they are fact sheets on Transport for New South Wales letterhead, so I just...
So that's a road header.
Right, so...
That's a road header there.
So
That's not a
in-
tunnel boring machine.
Okay, so in all of those pictures that we're looking at there, they are all... You're
The
saying...
the photos that are provided that relate to tunnel excavation,
Yeah.
they are photos of road headers.
Okay, so you're saying, so you're looking at all of those, and they've all got those...
Those picks and those
and all
cutter
of the
heads.
pictures
yeah.
are in the P2 masks for all of the people in there. I've also got another one, if I could just hand it to the witness as well, which is being copied already. This one is from February 2025 and refers to a road header. It's got pictures in there that very clearly show workers in just P2 masks in road header excavation.
Mhm.
Is that the standard for your workers, that they would all be in those P2 masks? You can see in every photo there's only a P2 mask on every single worker.
It's not the standard for all workers. Some workers have VersaFlows because they
Because
are
they have
not
facial
clean
hair
shaven. Anyone that has a P2
Hmm.
mask such as that has to be fit tested.
Yeah.
And if they're not fit tested, then they can't use those masks.
The evidence we received from Mrs. Kate Cole and from others is that it's the risk to the worker of only wearing a P2 in any circumstances is high. The pictures in there show that they're only wearing P2 right at the cutting face rather than VersaFlow. It causes me concern that we're hearing from Transport for New South Wales that they're agreeing that every worker should be in VersaFlow. And yet what we have there is very clear pictures that on your projects they're not.
That's correct. What I would also like to state, those pictures don't show the scrubbers that are also operating at the face.
I understand
so
there's other forms of protection, but in terms of the mask recommendation, it was very clear, and the statement we got from Transport for New South Wales was incredibly clear, that they acknowledge the risk to workers and that they are requiring all workers to wear the VersaFlow.
That is not the case on Western Harbour Tunnel.
Okay.
And I will restate that PPE, P2 masks are not the primary protection. They are backstop protection that we insist on, and we allow people to wear P2 masks if the fit works. Otherwise, they wear VersaFlow. I will also point out that communication is important underground, as it is in any setting, and communication using VersaFlows is not easy. So some people prefer to use VersaFlows. Other people prefer to use P2 masks because we can still maintain communication and they still provide the necessary protection for the workplace exposure standard.
Can you explain to us why Transport for New South Wales think that every worker is in VersaFlow on that project?
On which project?
On the Western Harbour Tunnel?
They may have been referring to the P1 project, which was the first stage of Western Harbour Tunnel. I'm speculating here. I'm aware of that, Mr. Chairman, that I'm trying to answer a question, but
No.
I'm speculating that they may have been referring to the P1 section of the project,
Could I
which
just
was delivered by another contractor.
Could I just qualify? They say, I'm just reading from the transcript from Wednesday, the 11th of December, where Ms. Camilla Drover says, the VersaFlow technology has only been introduced in recent years. It's being applied for the M6 Stage 1 and Western Harbour Tunnel.
That's right, but it could be the P1 because you're asking me why we have P2 and I'm saying we don't insist on VersaFlow for everyone underground, but we do provide it if in certain applications, and certainly we definitely provide it if people can't have a sealed fitting for the P2 paper masks.
We might have to go back to Transport for New South Wales. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Anthony D'Adam.
I just want to ask, so how many workers, direct employees of Acciona, have been diagnosed with silicosis?
None to my knowledge.
Is that because you don't have direct employees, they're employed by one of your partners on the project?
All of our employees on WestConnex 3A, CTP and this project are employed by Athiona.
Right.
At the moment we have approximately 250 underground workers employed directly by Athiona.
And any on your previous projects?
None on our previous projects,
None. Okay, that's my.
to my knowledge.
Thank you. The Honourable Susan Carter, and I think the Honourable Rod Roberts.
Thank you very much for being here. One of the challenges that we've heard other evidence about is a fluctuating workforce, but I understand from your opening statement that Athiona has a fairly stable workforce.
Acciona prefers to have a stable workforce,
Right.
but it still fluctuates.
Right.
Um,
So following on from my colleague's question, does that give you an opportunity to track health outcomes over time, perhaps better than some other tunnellers, or?
So, excuse me. On this project, we have transferred workers from other Athiona projects as well as from other tunnel projects. Before anyone commences on the Western Harbour Tunnel, they undergo a medical examination and a fitness test. Even if they have worked for us on other projects, we still require a fitness test. And once that they pass that fitness test, they're allowed to commence on this project. Even though they have worked for us on previous projects and may be transferring from other projects, we still require a baseline, and then we test that every 12 months, and then we test that again on completion.
And I understand there's two different types of tunnelling that's involved in the Western Harbour project.
Yes.
Are there different safety issues for the different types of tunnelling?
As far as testing for adequacy or suitability, the tests are the same. We don't distinguish between slurry shield TBM work and road header work in terms of exposure, primarily because a lot of the highest areas of exposure can be away from the cutting face, for example in the spoil areas, or even when we're doing cleaning of sandstone or shotcreting or concrete pavement work or drainage work. All of that activity is consistent irrespective of whether we're doing TBM work or road header work. I'd probably state that I'm referring particularly to road tunnels. Metro style tunnels have a slightly different requirement in some areas in terms of civil fit out works. But in road tunnels, which WestConnex 3A and Western Harbour Tunnel are, the exposure is not just at the cutting of the excavated face.
So could you perhaps elaborate a bit on what the different exposure risks are between the metro-style tunnelling and the road tunnelling?
I would put it in these terms. A metro-style tunnelling operation is a smaller diameter tunnelling operation, usually around 7 metres. It generally is a single track in each direction, and there are cross passages approximately every 250 metres. In terms of the type of tunnelling done in the Sydney Metro and certainly on CTP, it's a precast segment rings, single shield TBM, and the rings have to be in position to allow the next cutting phase. So once those rings are in position, they're effectively a sealed tunnel. There's no exposure to the rock or the virgin material behind them. There's very little water inlet. It's very much a sealed, clean system. That's also true on our TBM section, although the diameter will be much larger at nearly 16 metres. The methodology in principle is the same. We'll have a clean tunnel for that 1.5 kilometres under the harbour. In the road header section, the primary support is through rock bolts and shotcrete, and it's a drained tunnel. So it still allows water ingress, which comes from joints in the sandstone, and so that water needs to be managed. Equally, during the rock bolting process and during other processes, a lot of water is used for dust suppression and for lubrication, and that water invariably turns into mud. So we spend a lot of time making sure that the mud doesn't track through the tunnel. We provide blinding concrete all the way through the tunnel, which is a little different to what most contractors do, but that's in order to manage mud and keep the tunnel clean. Today's mud is tomorrow's silica dust, if you like, back behind the excavation. So we spend a lot of time on cleaning. So that kind of exposure to the rock, which is in road header tunnelling, doesn't exist necessarily in metro or TBM tunnelling.
I understand very little about road tunnelling, so could you explain what blinding concrete is and what its purpose is?
Certainly. From our perspective, we use blinding concrete to provide additional safety, quality and cleanliness underground. In my former life, this is not an Athiona response now, Mr. Chairman, if I can
No,
say
certainly.
that. I worked for a company that constructed the Sydney Harbour Tunnel. And on that particular project, we talked about standards before. The standards were different. When large-scale dump trucks operate on, and probably more recently on more recent tunnels as well, when large 30-tonne dump trucks go up and down, fully laden, 30 tonnes up and down on sandstone, it wears the sandstone away and you end up with overbreak and mud. So what we do once we complete the bench is we put a 100 millimetre blinding concrete, unreinforced, and we use that, if you like, as like a temporary roadway, but it also seals the sandstone underneath and stops the mud being produced as the trucks drive over it. And that means that away from the excavation, we've got a much cleaner tunnel. Now that's all done in service for cleanliness, definitely. It also provides a superior ride for the operators of the vehicles, and it means we have reduced maintenance and reduced repairs, and it helps us maintain the best possible environment underground.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, road tunnels are generally 3 lanes wide, so they have that shape that was shown in the members' distribution. If you look at the heading and bench shape, you can see it's more of a horseshoe. It's actually often referred to as a muffin top.
Yep.
And that shape is more amenable to allow cars in 3 lanes and to allow ramps in cabins, etc., to merge and diverge. Whereas a rail tunnel is much more linear in its operation.
We've heard evidence that underground is a very complex environment. Could you maybe sort of talk about some of the complexities of how you would go about managing a safe environment underground?
Yes, that's a very good question. Obviously, looking after the lungs and the health and well-being of our workforce is critical. Other elements that we need to look after include fire and life safety. For example, we don't allow any petrol vehicles underground, any petrol fuel. We don't allow any EVs underground. We try and minimise the risk of fire.
Sorry, if there's no petrol and no EV, diesel, sorry. Sorry. My colleagues answered that question. Thank
Yes,
you.
we use diesel.
I was thinking the same thing, Susan, so don't worry, we're not as...
Blue collar work.
We're not,
There's a difference.
we're not always onto it as right.
We use diesel because it's not flammable and not prone to explosion.
Right.
So fire and life safety is a big example. Another key area, and by the way, I could go on and on and on about all of the risks underground, but it includes separating people and plant. We have a lot of large vehicles underground, including dump trucks, but we also have concrete agitators that deliver shotcrete and concrete, and we have a number of other trucks that deliver a number of other goods. We have rough terrain Manitous, which are forklift vehicles, that kind of thing. So we separate people from plant to reduce that chance of interaction. Those are some areas. Lighting is another area. We provide self-rescuers in case of fire, and they're at regular points. We have call points underground, so that if there is any kind of slip, trip or fall or something, that workforce can contact someone and get immediate assistance. We have tunnel trackers so that we know exactly where everybody is in any part of the tunnel. These are just some of the examples.
And last question, in terms of your internal processes, as well as providing data to SafeWork New South Wales, who internally reviews results from industrial hygienists and keeps an eye on what's happening internally in the company?
So we have a dedicated occupational hygienist that works on the project full-time. We have a safety team led by our safety director, and of course we have tunnel managers, project managers, design and construction director and myself. So all of us review. We also have a regional hygienist which comes in and reviews our results.
I suppose my question really was, how often is it being reviewed and at how senior a level is it being reviewed?
By way of example, I spoke to our hygienist on Monday of this week. We review it very regularly. We have fortnightly internal formal meetings. We have weekly safety debrief reviews, and I have a fortnightly meeting, for example, with our safety director, but I literally sit about as far away as the chairman is from myself, so a lot of informal discussions take place. It's a constant, real-time interaction on any matter, including occupational health and safety, including, hygiene.
Great.
We also have to worry about mould and stuff like that as well.
Great. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honourable Ross.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And thank you for coming this morning. Most of my questions have been asked by my colleagues, so I'm just basically doing some mopping up here, I suppose you would say. You said, and this is me paraphrasing, not putting words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, when there's a new project or new staff come on board, they get medical examinations before they start. Mm-hmm. To what extent do those medical examinations extend? Do they look into the respiratory things? Is there chest x-rays? Is there what's the other
CT
one?
scans,
CT
spirometry.
scans, thank you, a mental blank. Do you provide those to start with, so have a baseline on where your employees are at, or?
Yes, for example, I've been chest x-rayed. Everyone is chest x-rayed. We rely on medical professionals. We engage an independent medical team to do all of our pre-start medical examinations. Sometimes they will recommend further testing depending on how the patient or potential employee, I should say, rather than patient, appears. So we leave it to the medical professionals to decide if further testing is required, CT scans or spirometry, or in fact any other test.
Okay. And my only other question at this stage is, we've talked about, on the rare occasions, I think you said there's been exposure levels and you've reported to Safe Work and that. Mm-hmm. What do you do internally with the staff if there's been an exposure level? Do you then, A, do you inform them? B, do you then arrange for those people to go and get another medical examination as a result of that exposure that you're aware of? What happens in those processes?
We certainly inform them, and we inform them promptly. We rely on our occupational hygienists to advise and in conjunction with our professional staff in safety, if we need to do further testing. Usually the exposures are very limited in terms of duration, so I can't recall us having to send anyone away for further testing for that small duration exposure and for the level of exposure. Where we particularly focus is how do we eliminate that exposure going forward, and that's where we provide a lot of energy and attention, and we may change our processes and procedures to provide extra protection to ensure that there's no further exceedance.
Sure. So then, is there a protocol or a safe operating procedure booklet or whatever? Is there something in place that says if we have an exposure above a certain limit, or certain level, sorry, I should say, that we automatically engage medical professionals to check our staff? Is there some sort of guide?
I don't think it's automatic. I think it's reviewed and it's decided on a case-by-case basis.
All right. And your evidence, I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, is that that hasn't been required previously
To date,
to your
on the
knowledge?
Western Harbour Tunnel or on WestConnex 3A.
Okay.
And I don't think so on CTP.
That's my questions.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Honourable Member. I should say, get it right third time. Excuse me. I've just got a small number of questions. Just returning to the projects that you were helpfully able to go through at the start of your statement. So the M4, M5 link project, that's a completed project, but there is still some ongoing...
We're in what's called defect liability.
That's right.
period.
So
there's no works ongoing.
yeah. So those projects that are currently on foot and being executed are the Western Harbour Tunnel Project Stage 2 and the Sydney Metro West Project Central Tunnelling Package, as described in a document I've got here. So those are the two projects currently on foot.
And the CTP project excavation has completed. It's basically in the demobilisation phase.
And with respect to the Western Harbour Tunnel Project Stage 2, you're the principal contractor.
Yes.
And with the Sydney Metro West Project Central Tunnelling Package, you've got Acciona, is it pronounced Ferrovial?
Ferrovial.
Joint venture. So does that mean that you both act, the organisations or businesses, as joint principal contractors, or there is, in fact, out of those two, a principal contractor that exists?
I think I said that Acciona, and it definitely is, I've got it written here, Acciona is the principal contractor
Thank you.
on that project. And Acciona was the principal contractor on the WestConnex 3A.
Thank you. Now, in terms of projects, and we're talking about perhaps the ones completed, but more to the point, those two that are currently on foot, notwithstanding the tunnelling is completed in one of them. The use of remote control road headers. Can you explain, have they been, were they used with the M5 Link project at all? Remote control?
No, this is a new initiative that we've introduced on Western Harbour Tunnel in conjunction with our road header supplier Sandvik,
Yep.
which is an Austrian company, and we have trialled we call it teleremote.
Yep.
We have trialled it in a section of tunnel excavation at Camaray.
Yep.
And we're now trialling it in a section of tunnelling down at Rozelle. And so this is new technology. This involves an operator sitting in a sealed room, a bit like a small underground ATCO type shed, sealed, and they have in front of them about 8 screens, video screens, together with other telemetry coming from the road header, and they literally operate the road header from that room, and the road header itself is probably in the order of 100 to 150 metres in advance of them at the cutting face. So this is the first time it's been trialled anywhere in the world.
So with respect to that trial, and you've said the Camaray trial has completed essentially, and there's now the Rozelle trial currently taking place. What is the plan for the evaluation and ultimately consideration, I suppose, about whether such technology or equipment that is able to be operated remotely going to be sort of made? Is it sort of, I suppose what I'm trying to say is this a trial that there is an intention that this will lead to, as you described in answering one of your earlier questions from a member, that standards are different and my words improve over time, because obviously you're speaking about the example of the Sydney Harbour Tunnel and how things have changed. Is the consideration this would be made permanent technology in the tunnelling work you do?
I think as a principle, from an Athiona perspective, and I would imagine also industry perspective, we always see automation, innovation, robotics as the way forward. My personal preference would be not to have any worker underground, from the point of view of exposure to various types of risks, including dust, but also those other risks that we've talked about before, fire and life safety, mobile plant interactions. We're on a journey with the teleremote. We are definitely preparing reports. The manufacturer is preparing a report. We're working very closely with the manufacturer with these trials, and also the operators and users of the system. We've sought their feedback. One of the biggest issues that we currently face is getting the bandwidth, if you like, the Wi-Fi bandwidth to be able to operate not just one road header, but if we think about it going forward, we need to operate multiple pieces of equipment using a Wi-Fi system, and can we physically get the amount of bandwidth and capability? That's one area that we've noticed is an issue, and we'll definitely work on ways of improving that. But I think it's a journey. It's not going to be resolved within the period of the Western Harbour Tunnel, but we would expect that over time, manufacturers working together with contractors, and particularly for Athiona, for example, we are very much focused on how can we take that risk away going forward. And we've been able to do it with a reasonable degree of success with shotcreting and with rock drilling for rock bolts, but it still requires people to be underground, but they're not, if you like, right at the face. They're working 5-10 metres away. To work 100 metres away is the challenge for us, and probably long term it would be good to be able to operate them from the surface. But I'm future speculating here.
Yes. No,
But we've got to start somewhere.
So my next question is related, and that is that there's obviously the movement of standards, and going back to the earlier comment you made about looking back at the Sydney Harbour Tunnel and what was practice there, if I could use that word in general terms, and what now is practice in tunnelling in 2025. Obviously, legislation evolves over time, and standards reflect whatever that evolution is. And in general terms, that would be hopefully always an improvement in the standards around occupational health and safety. But clearly, in the case of Acciona, and it's not a criticism, but it's an observation, you've indicated that you're trialling this to see how it goes so it can be evaluated. Does Acciona, as a large international company, draw on what are practices that it has inside the business in other jurisdictions, and perhaps potentially pick up standards that might be better than what's here in Australia, and use that to inform them about how to, run their operations with respect to tunnelling here in Australia?
Definitely. We look at not only overseas, but we look in other industries. We look in other contractors as well. We're always trying to do better and take go up the hierarchy of control, try and eliminate or come up with engineer controls, do things with more automation, with surveying, with other different types of works where we can take people away from the activity that's happening in and around the excavated face, or anywhere else for that matter. We do it with lifting, we do it with some of the automation works with paving and those types of things. We're always looking for different methods and improved methods, and we do draw on our overseas experience as well as our local experience.
Just one more question, and just conscious of the time. So in the context of, I use the word importing here to Australia, what is technology and practices which are in advance of current requirements, legislatively or regulatory. When that is imported and put into place, it obviously sits above what is the minimum standard, if I could use that general phrase. Does Acciona engage, or is there any requirement to engage with the regulator about the fact that you're organisationally, as a company, exceeding the standards, and therefore you are obliged, or as custom and practice, inform the regulator that you're exceeding the standards, or do you just implement it? And I don't impugn anything in terms of the word implementation. In fact, if it's exceeding standards, that would be on face value a good thing. But do you actually have that engagement with the regulator so the regulator can have some eyes into what are these new, perhaps potential enhanced standards?
We definitely do, and I'll do it by way of example. First of all, with the blinding concrete, which has made a huge difference in terms of reducing dust load underground. Secondly, with our boot washers outside of cabins, our workforce clean their boots and then they go inside the cabins and work in soft shoes, and then they exchange these kind of things. We invite Safe Work regularly to the project. I've personally had 2 sessions this year with Safe Work to explain what we do and take them underground, and we're very happy to share our experiences and our knowledge and how we address managing a whole raft of issues, including reducing silica exposure to our workforce, and we're very happy to share that with Safe Work, and we have done so, and we do so. We also share it with our client, Transport for New South Wales, because safety is everybody's business, as we say.
I've got one more, but perhaps Abigail, did you have any further ones? Sorry to put you on the spot.
no,
I
you
thought you
go.
might have had another one.
You go ahead.
Thank you. Can I just turn to, and I don't expect that you've necessarily read this, but it doesn't matter for the purposes of the question, but there was evidence given at the hearing on the 2nd of May from Ms Camilla Drover and Mr David Mullins from Transport for New South Wales, both of them in different roles. And on page 47, going on to page 48, making some reference to some work that's been done with the University of Newcastle. Do you have some direct knowledge about what they are referring to? And if you do, perhaps are you able to elucidate from the point of view of the company that, I don't know whether you'd call it trial, but at least investigative work that's being undertaken?
I have some knowledge. I'll perhaps preface the question that the Athiona Samsung Bouygues joint venture did some similar or some research with the University of Wollongong around silica in the during the, I'll say, 2018, 2019, 2020 research work that we funded. And in relation to the research that you're referring to there, I understand that Transport have made an application, perhaps in conjunction with iCare, for a grant to work with the University of Newcastle. We are not, as Athiona, a party to that request for a grant. But what we have agreed with Transport for New South Wales is to make the Western Harbour Tunnel project available for the purposes of that research if the grant does get
If it's
approved.
Yeah.
We're certainly very supportive of any research, and we will be actively working with Transport and the University of Newcastle should that research go ahead.
And perhaps slip one, go.
Just a quick
Please,
one.
please.
Thank you. Just following up on the line of questioning from earlier, are you able to provide us with details of how many workers you have at each of the Transport for New South Wales sites, and how many PPEs, I guess, well, what do I want to know? I want to know how many of the VersaFlow systems are available in each of those locations.
Do you mind if I give you an approximation as opposed to a detailed number?
Feel free to take it on notice as well, if that's easier.
Take it means that you can take it away and
In
inform
terms of the numbers, I
Yes.
can take it away.
Yeah.
What I can say in terms of the provision of your thrust is VersaFlow versus P2 masks, is that?
Yeah, I just need
Yeah.
to know how many VersaFlow there are.
There would be a large number of VersaFlow. I'll take it on notice to give the exact answer, but there are many crews that only use VersaFlow.
And perhaps just one final question, which goes back to, I think the Honourable Roy Roberts raised the assessment of potential new employees entering the employ of Acciona in tunnelling work. And you might be able to comment on this more broadly. Obviously, the work done by those involved in tunnelling work is quite specific work and skilled work. And I would imagine there is a cohort of workers who might be described as tunnellers here in Sydney, and perhaps beyond Sydney, obviously, who engage with the company and work for the company. Is there a requirement, and once again this is just to help us understand this, that given that people do move from contracts to contracts, you explained how the company itself does essentially or require testing at that very commencement point or before they actually start.
And during and at the end.
Okay, well, and during at the end. So this is starting to get to my question specifically. But as they enter the organisation or potentially working for the organisation, is there a custom and practice or a requirement that they bring with them and present details of their experience and perhaps even their medical conditions, such as they might be? In other words, I suppose what we're wondering, thinking out loud, is about the information travels with the worker as they move through projects to give that full continuity of, I suppose, their experience as tunnellers, but particularly in the context of what we're doing here, their matters to do with exposure or potential diagnosis or whatever the case may be. So do you sort of start with a blank sheet of paper and make that assessment at the point of them considering employment, or that information that they might bring helps inform your understanding of that individual worker?
It's a very good question. I would say that we treat everyone the same in terms of the pre-employment medicals.
Right.
We obviously are aware that there are experienced people. You don't just put people on a road header
Of course
or
not,
a robo drill or something like that. So people's experience is very important, and their CV is very important. Their medical records are their own.
Yes.
We don't have rights to their medical records, so if you like, we have to re-establish. We actually, as Athiona, don't see the medical records of the worker or potential worker. That's why we engage a third-party medical professional. They understand what our requirements are, and they address those requirements during the pre-employment medical and beyond. So there's no, I guess if someone turned up with their medical details, we'd probably have to say we're not allowed to look at it.
Okay, yeah.
Because they're private, and we probably wouldn't rely on it. But we do rely on their experience and their knowledge. And of course, the other element of all of this is education. What I would also say over the decades is that there's a lot better worker education around the risks of silica, the long-term impacts, and so it's in the vernacular and in the language, and it's part of what we do on a daily basis, and that's a good thing.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know any final questions from any member, but appreciate you making yourself available. It's been very helpful today to give us the insights you've been able to provide. I think some questions have been taken on notice, a small number, so our Secretariat will liaise with you over the return on those. But once again, thank you very much. It's been very helpful, and we much appreciate you making yourself available. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity.